Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm very glad you're with us today. I'm blessed to receive many emails from Seek Reality listeners, and other than, of course, asking, we have certain favorite guests back again. I get a lot of those. What many people who reach out to me will ask for is more information about how to better align themselves spiritually, or maybe make this their last Earth lifetime. When today's guest's book came across my desk, it caught my eye. The book is called Coherence Revolution, Finding Flow in Your Journey to the Present Moment. And that has rather a nice ring, don't you think? Essentially, it's advice about what all of us are trying to do, which is get our act together. Dr. Mark Halpern graduated from the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College in Toronto, and he's been practicing for more than 25 years in his profession. Mark is also an author, a lecturer, and certified heart math practitioner. And when his own life was out of control, he followed that excellent ancient advice, physician, heal thyself. And the result is this book where he describes just how he did it. With a deeper understanding of the role that stress management plays in maintaining optimal health, now he enjoys sharing his knowledge, philosophy, and his approach to health through his Coherence Revolution program, as well as, of course, through this book, which I think will be particularly useful for young adults who are just trying to figure out their lives. You know, the problem with life is that it doesn't come with a user's manual. You've got to figure it out for yourself. And especially for young people who are, kind of high-strung by nature. And you know who you are, basically. If you're high-strung, Mark Halpern's book could be an excellent user's manual for life for you. But really, I think this book could help a great many people. Plus, Mark Halpern is a big fan of Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. And how great is that? Mark, welcome. It's lovely to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Mark, there's much here. There's actually so much that I think we can only touch on a part of it. And I'm going to ask you, as we get into it, to basically touch on the high points yourself of Coherence Revolution, because I think when you've written a book, you know it better than anybody. I've actually read it. I was quite engrossed, especially in the second part, when you really put it all together, because as you were falling apart and you were kind of taking us through what you did, and I found that pretty engrossing. But I think many people are going to really most identify with when you really were putting it all together. I'm going to ask you to lead the way there and take us through it. But first, I just like to mention, and especially I think for my audience, because they followed through my journey with me, I'd like to mention that the first teacher of whom I'm aware who taught essentially what you teach taught it 2,000 years ago. Do you know who that might be that I'm talking about?
You can tell me.
It was Master Jesus.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the religion. The religion ignores what Jesus taught. But 11 years ago, I figured out what he was actually all about and applied his teachings to my life. And I have to say that they work amazingly well, which is a testimony to what you teach. Because in only months, they transformed my life altogether. And the changes turned out to be permanent. I can say that 11 years later. So we're going to do a website for him. And it's going to do, I think, essentially the same kinds of things that your Coherence Revolution website does for other people. And that's a testimony, actually, to what you're doing. I think that basically there's a way to make this work for people, and it's basically simple. So you did it, I think, kind of the harder way, but you had a lot harder problem than I had. And this works, folks. It works very well. But everybody's life is different. And I think many people are going to find that Coherence Revolution works for them. What you had I don't know how we would sum it up. Sum up, would you please, for us, the problems that you had when you started this journey?
I think for me, I mean, I basically suffered with what a lot of people suffer with, which is anxiety, but I didn't know it as such. It started for me when I was a teen. And I think, most of us have developed these subconscious patterns that start in our lives before puberty, whether it's from looking at our parents or the world around us or the relationships or some things that we've observed, the way we've been brought up. But we all develop these, what I would call neurological patterns, and they become these hardwired programs that now when I got into my late teens and 20s, they started really showing up. And, it's been said that about 95% of your day is really just repeating the programs of the past. And so really we're living in these programs over and over again, and we're practicing. I like to say we practice anxiety, we practice stress over and over again because we keep doing the same things. And for me, that's really what it was. It was these anxieties and triggers that just started happening in my teen years. And by the time I was, 20 years old, I had identified it as anxiety. And so I literally tried everything and anything I could get my hands on: Eastern-based approaches, Western-based approaches, medications, therapies, energy healers. I mean, you name it, I tried it. And over the years, some things worked and some things didn't work, and some things gave me some relief and some things didn't. But, as I aged and got into my 30s and 40s, I started to put it together. And, for me, learning a technique called HeartMath by a company that put it together called HeartMath. It's a breathwork technique that uses emotion and visualization in your own breath. And you can start to learn how to change your own physiology in the moment, because, it's not about getting rid of anxiety. It's really about understanding how to use your own physiology, how to change your own physiology by using your breath, by using your senses, by using the world around you, the people around you, the environments you spend time in, to be able to change your physiological state into one that is renewing rather than depleting. And most of us spend most of our day depleting ourselves on so many levels. And I think it really comes back to a very, very simple principle, which is that health is not the absence of symptoms. Most people believe if they feel good that they're healthy, and by the time that they feel they don't feel good, then they're not healthy. However, in most cases, the symptom is the last thing to show up, whether it's anxiety or heart disease, right? 80% of people have a heart attack and die before they even know they had heart disease. So the idea is that the symptom is the last thing to show up. But health is really optimal function. When every cell, tissue, and organ in your body is functioning and replicating the way it should, we're healthy people. But as we do things that deplete us on a daily basis, the way we think, the way we feel, the things that we engage in, when it depletes us of energy, our cells start to use more energy than is necessary, and that depletes us. And when you start being depleted, your cells are in a state of what's called dis-ease. And if your cells are in a state of dis-ease for long enough, eventually it becomes a disease. And this is when the symptoms show up years later. So creating coherence, which is really balance or inspiration, where you become your true self. When you start to do that on a daily basis by the way you breathe, by the thoughts you think, by the music you listen to, the people you speak with, when you start to change your physiology into a renewing state, then you're a more resilient person. You are easier to adapt to the world around you. And when you start to create this coherence, which is really between your heart and your brain, you're now in the most adaptable, resilient state that you can be in, which is a state of health, a state of inspiration. And that's where we learn to grow, and we can create the lives that we want to create. So really, the Coherence Revolution is about diving into your life and being able to have a toolbox filled with things that in the moment when you're stressed, you can change your physiological state. You can allow your body to become more renewed and resilient, and you can change up the patterns that you've created.
So coherence, how would you just describe coherence in one sentence?
Well, coherence is really where you're your true self. Athletes might describe it as when they're in the zone. But as was popularized by Dr. Joe Dispenza and the HeartMath Institute, I'm talking about heart-brain coherence. When your heart is in a nice rhythm which would look like a sine wave. When your heart is in a nice coherent rhythm and you're breathing in this nice coherent rhythm, your heart's rhythm is about 40 times stronger than your brain's. And so you start to what's called entrain your brain rhythm. And when your heart rhythm entrains your brain rhythm, you affect the higher centers of your brain that deal with decision making and adaptability and stress. And so when I talk to people getting in a heart coherent state, a heart brain coherence, it means you're getting into a physiological state that is renewing for you. And you feel it. You feel uplifted. You feel inspired. You feel more relaxed. You feel peaceful, whatever the positive emotion is. But you're getting out of that depleted state, which is usually erratic, and your mind is racing and you're stressed out and you're not behaving the way you want to behave. You're not exhibiting the behaviors and the interactions that you'd like to have on a daily basis.
But it was quite impressive. I was amazed what you went through, all the different methods of looking at oneself. You went right through all of them. Some of the books that you read, and then you went and you met the authors. It was quite a voyage, really, that you undertook.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, as I was saying, I really was open to everything. I just wanted to heal. So whereas I would do psychotherapy or do some type of Western-based approach, even taking medications at times for anxiety or depression or whatever was diagnosed at the time, I also was very open to a new way of thinking, and authors like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, and people that were able to open my mind up and to understand a little bit more about what's going on, not only in my own brain and body, but more in the universe and these universal concepts that have been taught for years by many different people over the years in different forms. But it's really always about not living simply by the patterns that you've created. So, I would do little things here and there. And I mean, I went to shaman and energy healers that would
it was
claim.
really impressive.
Yeah.
All the energy and the effort it took just to do and try all these different, my hat goes off to you, really.
It was an exhausting process. It was definitely an exhausting process.
But it really was, I thought it was an exhausting process just to go through all of that. It just impressed me very much that you were willing to give so much of your energy to trying. I mean, it's a testimony to how determined you were to find your own solution and to heal yourself, and also by extension to give solutions to the people that were coming to your office that you knew needed healing. I really, as I say, I'm impressed, and I take my hat off to you that you were willing to try so much and try so hard, and that you found this solution, which, as I say, is an ancient one and works. I also know that it works.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the best thing that's come out of it, the silver lining, is that whether it's the book or the course, I'd like to save people a whole bunch of time and obviously a whole bunch of money, and not have to go down that same rabbit hole in the journey that I went through, because I didn't really have someone that was guiding me through it. I found my own guides, and some things worked temporarily for different amounts of time, but over 20 and 30 year period, going through all of it, finally I was able to say, okay, I think it's worthwhile to go through the process that I can quantify it and put it into a book form, and then obviously a course form, so that people could have just at least a guide to go through it. I mean, it's different for everybody because, music will hit different types of music hit different people differently. Different environments hit different people in different ways. And so the idea is for you to do the deep dive on your own, but to have fun with it and to figure yourself out and to understand on a daily basis. If you want to wake up with one emotion or in one mood, and then at lunch, maybe you have a different mood or environment you want to be in. And then when you get home from work, and there are different times of the day, and you don't do the same things at different times of the day because emotions have different energies to them. Peace and tranquility and contentment is a much different emotion than exuberance and excitement and inspiration. And so there are different things that are going to allow you to get into different emotional states. And if you can have a toolbox that you can go into at any moment and say, oh, I know what I can do. I can smell citrus that maybe uplifts me, and I can smell lavender that makes me more peaceful. I can look at a picture of a mountain and become meditative, and I can look at a picture of my family and just feel really grateful. And all of these different things that you can involve in your life and have in your toolbox. And then, as I was saying, at the heart of all of this is this concept called heart math, which is a breathwork technique that gives you so much power that if you start to breathe in a certain way and use your emotion, that you can change your physiological state. And most people don't realize it, that what they're doing on a daily basis is they're literally practicing stress. They're practicing creating these chemicals of stress, whether it's norepinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, and they're practicing, and their body gets very good at producing them. Well, now we want you to consciously start to practice creating the chemicals of joy, dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and endorphins. And by doing different things, you're practicing creating those chemicals. And as you practice that, you're creating different emotions. And now your body gets used to creating those emotions. And as your body gets used to creating those emotions, it becomes more familiar. And now all of a sudden you're living the emotions of your dream life on a daily basis because you're practicing them. And as soon as you do that, your dream life becomes much more practical, much more doable, because you're already used to practicing those emotions. And so the idea is to consciously make habits out of creating these newer or uplifting emotions so that it becomes more familiar to you and easier as you go along. And so now, even though I still get anxiety, I'm not rid of anxiety. We all have this fight or flight system in our body. You need it to work. But the idea is that if it's inappropriate for the moment, that I can now change it simply by the way I breathe or the things I engage in. And that's a very powerful, almost like a superpower, because now you know you're not stuck. You can actually change your emotional and physiological state in the moment.
But see, that is extraordinary from you, because as you say in your book, you had gotten to the point where whatever was going on, whatever the stimulus was, your only response was stress.
That's right. It was always anxiety. I didn't feel any other emotions. If I was angry, if I was sad, if someone disappointed me, if I was scared, everything came out as anxiety. And so it was very hard for me to distinguish between different emotions. And so it was a practice for me to practice being peaceful, to practice being exuberant, to practice being, inspired. And as you do that, you go, wow, there's all this range of different emotions that you can feel. And it's exciting.
For you so much. I mean, you had tied yourself into this emotional knot of stress at that point in your life. And so you had to basically reinvent normality for yourself.
Yes. That's exactly what was happening, was creating a new reality and giving myself the confidence that I didn't have to stay down that rabbit hole of stress. Even though those programs were there, I could counteract those programs and start to create new ones. And I found that, I would dive into the moment, and people talk over the last 10 years, mindfulness has become a really, big key word, and people are talking about it, and there's industries built on mindfulness. But the fact is when you're in the moment, there is nothing, you're not feeling stress in the moment, right? If there was a fire happening, if you're going to get engaged in putting out that fire, you're not actually anxious. You're putting out the fire. It's after the fact that maybe you have a breakdown, or, you get stressed out about what happened, or anxious about what might be to come, right? Anxiety is really about fear of the future, and depression is really about regrets of the past. But when you're right in the moment, there's none of that. There's just the inspiration of the moment. And so for me, like, I'd go to work, I might be anxious, and then all of a sudden I'd be with someone, and as long as I gave them my full attention, there was no anxiety in that moment. I was myself again. And so the idea was to do as many things as you could to keep you in the moment, so that you're not thinking about the future, thinking about the past, you're engaging in the moment. And in my book, I call this a process mindset versus the destination mindset. As opposed to always hoping to get somewhere, you're actually design a process in your life that you can enjoy on a day-to-day basis, and going through the motions of your day-to-day is your life. You're not looking forward just to the future of it. You're looking forward to the present moment of it.
And that's why I said this is kind of a handbook for a young person to create a healthy a healthy life, because people can so easily, when they don't know what they're doing, create this vastly abnormal set of reactions to life, and they don't even know that that's not normal, because that's all they've ever known. And how vastly sad that that's the only reaction they have, and they've missed so much joy.
Well, it's funny. You talk about younger females, and I agree, or younger women, younger men that are starting out in their life. But when we were going through our program, we actually found it was a bit different in at least two of the cohorts that we did. Women that were 55, 65 years old were the ones that were writing the emails and were engaging with me the most and saying how much it's changing their life. They'd had all these life experiences. They're 65. Two of the women I can think of were retired. But it was this whole giving them this power now to start to change these programs that they thought they were stuck for the rest of their life with. And so we found people setting themselves up for the future as younger people. But the people that had been doing this or living this life for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, they were the ones that had the biggest aha moments of like, wow, it didn't have to be this way and it doesn't have to be this way. So what really I'm proud of is that across the board, you can dive in wherever you are, because it's still all about how do you make your life the best it can be from this moment forward. And I guess women who are in their 60 and 65 year old, they're now looking around and going, what else is there for me? How can I inspire myself? And that's what the course did for them. So it's been really across the board of seeing people who are willing to dive in and do the self inquiry and learn these tools.
Well, that's even more exciting. If at any stage of life, you can reinvent your life and make it a healthy, broad range of emotions, to discover joy at any stage. What an exciting thing.
Yeah. And that's really what I think it's about, is discovering joy, and not only discovering it, consciously planning for it. It's like when people tell me, oh, they can't wait to go away on vacation. They picture themselves on a beach. They picture themselves in a hot tub. They picture themselves walking with their loved one on a beach. But what they're really picturing is the emotions that they want to feel. Because in many cases, you go and you look forward to that trip, and then you go, and guess what? No matter where you go, there you are. But if you start to think, what is the emotion that you wanted to feel, and you start to practice that emotion even before the vacation, now all of a sudden you don't even need the vacation as much, because you started to live those emotions. So it's really about identifying how you want to feel and how can you allow yourself to get into that emotional state.
Yes. If you consistently practice being healthy and happy every day, it will transform your life into one of joy, passion, inspiration, and true coherence.
Yes.
Quote from the book.
Yes. Even simple things, the brain is set up like this, and the body's set up with this. If people are feeling depressed in the morning, if you go into the mirror and you force yourself to smile, the muscles that help you smile also release endorphin in your brain. And so literally just the act of smiling will help you feel happier. And if you tell kids to go do this, they have no problem. They'll go in front of a mirror, make silly faces, and do whatever it's necessary.
Right.
And they'll start laughing. But if you have an adult who's been sad or depressed for years, and you say, you know what, just go and smile in the mirror, the energy that it takes to overcome the feeling of depression or anxiety and smile in the mirror can feel overwhelming. And yet, if you do it, you will start to break that pattern. And that's one of the things we call a neurological interrupt. What is it that you can do to first interrupt that emotion that you're in? Maybe you can't change it yet. You have to interrupt it. Once you've interrupted it, then you can start to change it. So simply going in front of a mirror is one of those ways. Watching a comedy and just laughing is one of those ways. Getting into a good conversation with someone is one of those ways. Get lost in something else, and then change your physiology just a little bit, and then you can go do some of the things that are good for you, whether it's exercise or eating something that's nutritious for you, what have you. The things that maybe you don't do because you're not feeling yourself, you're feeling down, so you're not eating properly, you're not talking to people properly, you're not exercising. So you've got to get yourself in a bit of a different mindset. And then, oh yeah, I should go for that walk. Oh, I should go take a shower. Oh, I'm going to phone my best friend, whatever it is. But sometimes you need to do something to shake it up. And, that might even be screaming in your own room. Just scream, let it all out. And then you'll feel, okay, now I can move on and go do the things that are good for me. But we call them neurological interrupts, something to just change it up in the moment so that then you can get a little bit of ease, a little bit of change of perspective, so that then you can go about and do the tools that you are now learning to do.
It is so important to get to the place where you can experience the whole range of emotions, and especially the upper emotions, the joy, happiness, feeling good about doing something that surprises and delights somebody else. All of those things, which actually children can do naturally.
That's right.
And keeping the ability to do those things is such a delight for each of us. To be on vacation every day. I mean, all of those things which we forget as we get older and we get weighed down. I can tell you sincerely, I don't know what it is to be depressed. My husband and I were talking about this the other day, because he gets depressed all the time. He tried to describe to me the feeling. I don't know what that feeling would be.
That's really an amazing gift. So many people almost don't know anything but feeling the stress or anxiety or depression. Wayne Dyer said it years ago, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was essentially, however you perceive the universe, if you perceive the universe as a friendly place and working for you, or if you perceive the universe as really dark and against you and negative, either way, you're going to be right.
You're right. Exactly.
Because that's the way it appears. And so people like yourself, and I know many people like that, they don't get it because they didn't experience it. And that's wonderful, because you don't have that program that was in there, right? People like myself and many people who suffer with anxiety, depression, or just they're not living their best life. It's these programs that were ingrained subconsciously before really I was even old enough to understand it. And so, 40, 50 years later, we're still dealing with these issues.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is. I honestly don't know why that is, that some people have that done to them or something. I don't know why.
It's the experiences that you have. I mean, there's a stat that says about 50% of all NBA basketball players within 5 years of them retiring are right back to the original financial state that they were in before they played basketball. And many times that's, not, their finances aren't very good. And it's simply because they have a subconscious set point for financial awareness and what they deserve in life. And so when these programs are ingrained at a young age, it's like you're living your whole life just to prove these programs true. And so it's very important, obviously, to be talking about this with your kids, and from a very young age, instilling good values, but also making sure the way you're upbringing your kids is healthy emotionally for them, because otherwise they might be suffering from programs that were subconsciously installed before they were even aware of it.
All right. So this is part of your practice, right? Your medical practice?
I'm a chiropractor, and I do, one of the things that's great about adjusting the spine for people who've ever been to a chiropractor is when you adjust the spine, although it does help with neck and back pain, what you're really doing is resetting the neurological information between your brain and your body. And as you do that, you actually start to create a coherent rhythm in your nervous system simply by adjusting the spine and making sure that the brain is communicating with the body. So for me, adding Coherence Revolution and all the breath work and techniques that I'm talking about, it's just been a natural extension of what I do with adjusting the spine, because it's all about creating balance and harmony between the communication between your brain and your body.
And so have you seen when people have read this book and you've heard from them and people have gone through your program, have you seen real improvements in their lives as a result?
I think the thing I'm most proud of is that once you've gone through the program, and if you put in the work, first you have to practice the techniques and you have to do the self-inquiry to find out what actually works for you. But what I'm most proud of is that people, the confidence that you develop. As I was saying earlier, I've had women who are 25 to 30-year-olds. I've had women that are in their mid 40s. I've had women in their 60s and men in their 50s and 60s who the number one thing that they tell me is that now in the moment when they're stressed, they can change it up. They can change their physiological state. They don't have to stay stuck. And that's huge for some people. And it's allowed them to break through barriers. So, for one woman, it was about finding the career that she wanted. For another, it was having discussions with her family about she needed more time for herself, for self-care. And her family agreed on different nights that the husband or the kids would do their cooking. And she could then, whether it was read or do therapy or go for a walk, but she was able to take care of herself. I had a guy in his 40s who really didn't speak much to his wife, didn't spend a lot of time with his kids, and was all about his work, and it was out of control. And he got a partner, he hired more staff, he had the talks with his wife and his kids, and he set up his schedule so that he's spending more time with them. And there was a balance that was created, right? And I was saying I had women in their 60s who, were sitting at home retired and didn't have a lot to do. And all of a sudden there was an inspiration that returned because they had a focus and they knew that there was more to life than just waiting. It was more about enjoying the moment. And so I'm just really excited about all the changes that people can have. We go into, as you know, because you had read the book, we go into almost every aspect of your life, from your career to nature.
Yeah, I was amazed actually, right? Of how many things that you do. Yes.
So you go into it all. And once you dive into it, for some people, it won't be the career that's necessary to dive into. Other people, it'll be the essential oils and diving into what olfactory smell makes them feel good. For other people, it might be experimenting with music and sound. Other people, it's visual and maybe taste. So for so many different people, it's about what you want to get out of it and what you want to dive in and spend your time doing the self-inquiry. But if you do go through every aspect of it, you will have gone through very, very thoroughly every aspect of your life. So that it's like the blueprint to your life. You're designing the type of life you want to live, and not only the type of life, but the type of emotions you want to feel. And once you've identified them, you start to practice them, and you start to practice the dream life that you've always wanted. And once you start to practice the emotions of your dream life, the practicality and the ability to live that life is far greater, because now it's more familiar to you, and the more familiar it becomes, the more easy it is to attain.
Wow, that's certainly, it's ambitious, but apparently it works. And as I say, because of my experience with trying it with the teachings of Jesus and seeing what a difference it made in my life, I didn't have those problems. But I had some other problems. I was secretly a terrible driver, that kind of problem. I was frustrated easily I didn't like it when people cut me off in traffic, that sort of thing. And it taught me peace about what other people were doing. It taught me forgiveness when people cut me off, that sort of thing. That's right. And it took the edge off life for me when I was younger, and that made a big difference. It sort of finished my. There was a little level of stress there that it took away completely, I have to say, and that's all I needed to really become the grown up that I needed to become. And so, if you need a little, it can do that for you. If you need a lot more, then I think Coherence Revolution will do it, because you seem to be able to find the areas where people need a lot more heavy duty work and be able to do it for them. Certainly people who have had someone in the state that you were in, a whole life of getting to the point where there's no nuance at all. It's all stress. That's where you were. There was nothing but stress.
Yes.
I mean, that you needed big help, and you got it.
Well, and it took an openness, a willingness to get help. And, the idea is that at least thankfully in the last 10, 15 years, mental health, talking about stress is acceptable, and people there's so many different ways now of, what they call biohacking, which is really just ways of little tricks and things you can do to help you achieve different emotional states. And it's this willingness to say, you know what, I'm not feeling the way I want to feel. Maybe I'm not anxious every second, or maybe I'm not depressed every second, but I'm also not living the life I want to live. Yeah. And I need to be able to inspire myself on a daily basis. And I want to use the most natural means I can, and have the most options that I possibly can. And so, for me, I call it layering of the senses, where, you might smell something, look at something, listen to something all at the same time. And that literally supercharges your ability to gain this level of coherence, this rhythm in your heart, between your heart and your brain. And so for most people, it's really just a matter of being open to saying, okay, what works for me? I'm going to dive into it. And, in my book and in the workbook and in the videos, I just give people a framework so that they can dive into it themselves. And I do talk about some of the things that didn't work for me, or, different therapies that perhaps either avoid, or that they're not going to be your answer, simply because, there's certain therapies that might be short term. There's certain therapies that won't resonate with everybody. There's certain concepts that won't resonate with everybody. But hopefully, if you go through the course, you'll go, okay, I could take A, B, and C out of it. Maybe D and E didn't resonate with me, but A, B, and C, that was fantastic. And that's really what it's all about, is having enough options that you can fill up your toolbox with what resonates with you. And on a daily basis, creating that, I call it my template. I call it a daily time schedule, where literally you're designing what you want to do in your life. Because I feel like most people don't design their life. In every other aspect of their life, there's a plan. But when it comes, if you want to build a house, you don't just go start getting the wood. You actually make a plan for it. But when it comes to living on a day-to-day basis, you get up, you do your chores, you make sure your laundry done, your groceries, and you're like, oh, I had no time for all of these things that inspire me. Well, I believe it's the opposite way. You have to make a schedule, put everything that inspires you in first. When are you going to do it on a daily basis? Then add in, the last thing you add in are sort of things like the groceries or the laundry or the things that maybe aren't your favorite things, because those things will end up getting done. But you can't forget about what I would call the big rocks in your life, the things that are going to keep you grounded to life. Whether it's religion, whether it's exercise, whatever it is that is going to inspire you on a daily basis.
Not religion.
Don't
Religion doesn't do it. No, but I think you're right. I think the core things that are going to give you happiness and give you peace and give you strength to face the day, those are the things that you've got to pay attention to. Because if you keep running and running and running, and you never restore your batteries, you never make time for your spiritual and your mental health, so you're going to run down those batteries for sure. And that's what your book really does. It gives people ways to keep your mental health and your spiritual health in good order. And I just think it's a good way for people to do that. I think it works really well. And I'm sorry, but we're coming to the end of our time. I really enjoyed the book, and I've enjoyed talking with you about you came from a rough place, Mark.
Yeah. I did. And it's, I'm here to tell people that there are other options. And if we're coming to the end, I do want to give people an opportunity. I've been on the podcast, and I'm doing some of these. I want people to get the information. And on my website, coherencerevolution.com, you can actually download the ebook for free. I want people to have it. You can download it and read it. And then there's the course, and there's the workbook, and there's some other coaching. But I do have a code, which is CR30. And anybody in your audience that goes to checkout and puts in the code CR30 will get a 30% off discount on the program. And it's a recorded program with 20 videos, roughly 20 videos, and you 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute videos. And you'll be able to go through it at your own pace, and the workbook and the book come with it. And so I hope people will take advantage of it and start to change their lives, because there is hope for people who are stressed and anxious and depressed. And the idea is for you to take it into your own hands and create the life that you've always wanted to create.
Well, that's very generous of you.
Thank you.
We will put that in the materials. So
Sure.
everyone, you don't have to drive off the road to write that down. It'll be in the materials. Thank you so much, Mark. I very much enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And everyone, we've come to the end of our time. And as always, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm so happy you could be with us today. Please never forget, you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And when you really understand what that means, it's going to change everything in your life for the better. Next week, our guests will be our very special friends, Carol and Mikey Morgan, they're going to be with us for an amazing 18th time. As you likely know by now, Mikey is a 6th level being. He last incarnated in the 1600s, and he was becoming worried, understandably worried about the way things are going on Earth. So he wanted to be able to take an extra Earth lifetime that ended in 2007. And he was only 20 years old then, but he wanted a lot of time to be able to communicate with us through his mother, Carol, and answer our questions. Now, Carol swears she never would have signed up for this, but it happened none the same. I've tested Mikey extensively. As you know, I've spent more than 50 years studying this stuff. And Mikey is exactly what he claims to be, a very, very knowledgeable, very advanced being. He's answered in my hearing more than 500 questions. Some of them I would have had trouble answering, and he's answered them better than I ever could. And he's a better public speaker to boot, and he's a lot more handsome. He's quite adorable, actually. And this week, of course, so please, of course, be with us next week and hear the things he has to tell us. And this week, we've been talking with Dr. Mark Halpern about his recent book, which is called Coherence Revolution, Finding Flow on Your Journey to the Present Moment. I've read this book. I think that anyone who has trouble with just about any area of his life, and especially in areas with regard to emotion, to kind of feeling stuck, right across the board, if you're having trouble, this is a good place to go to try to figure out things to kind of get going, because Mark was about as stuck as you could be. I call it the gift of divine desperation. And Mark was a doctor. I mean, he really needed to get going and to be able to give his very best to his patients and to the world. And so he dug in and he tells his story. And he solved his problem. And I think that the book can solve a lot of people's problems. I don't have that kind of problem. I'm very, very blessed. But first and foremost, if you want to be able to give the best of yourself to the world, you've got to give the best of yourself to yourself. That's the most important thing you can do. You've got to take care of yourself. Personally, spiritually, your innermost heart has got to be strong. You've got to have that ability to love deeply and completely. You've got to have a sense of joy. So as I said earlier, what Jesus actually came to teach is actually what Mark teaches, but religion blocks it. We're going to see what we can do about that. But meanwhile, this is an excellent book to help you. This is called Coherence Revolution, and I recommend it. It may be for you just the ticket to living your own very best life. And now it's time once again to mention that Seek Reality Online is your one-stop resource for all things death and the afterlife. Just go to seekreality.com and start to learn for yourself what really is going on. And the fact that you truly are a powerful eternal being. I say it, but it's true. It's impossible for you ever to die. And seekreality.com is your reality. Everything actually is eternal, everything that matters. As you know, my own nonfiction books are Liberating Jesus, My Thomas, The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, The Fun of Growing Forever, The Fun of Living Together, and coming this fall, only in weeks now, is The Fun of Loving Jesus, Embracing the Christianity that Jesus actually taught. Nothing to do with the one that people are practicing now. For young children, there's The Fun of Meeting Jesus, and you can order all these books through bookstores or on Amazon, and the adult books are also available as audiobooks. If you want to talk about anything at all, or just shoot the breeze, always contact me through the green contact block on robertagrimes.com. Just make sure I have your email address and that it's correct so that I can email you back. Past episodes of Seek Reality are available wherever podcasts are found, and many people tell me they just listen each week through the Seek Reality app that you can find just about anywhere. And meanwhile, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being. And you in particular, you are infinitely loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.